Welcome to Psychic Girls Next Door. We are your hosts, Lili
and Shannon Miller. This podcast is for all spirituality enthusiasts and psychics next door to share tools, experiences, and spiritual practices that align with your highest vibrational self.
So not too long ago, Shannon and I, we had the opportunity to visit Sedona. And if you're not familiar with Sedona, Sedona is in Arizona, and it's like a desert town near Flagstaff that is surrounded by just this beautiful red rock formations, like so all the steep canyon walls and pine forests. And it's also a city of mystique and intrigue. And I actually didn't know that before we headed to Sedona. I knew it was a very spiritual Mecca, but it was a great learning experience being in Sedona. But this reputation is a result of a long-held belief that there is a presence of concentrated energy in specific areas among the red sandstone rock formations, which is called a vortex of energy. And they are thought to be swirling centers of energy. They're conducive to healing, meditation, and self-exploration. So these are places where the earth seems especially alive with energy.
And Sedona, as we know today, began to emerge in 1980 after a psychic channeler named Paige Bryant referred to 4 of its most popular meditation spots, the Airport Mesa, Cathedral Rock, Bell Rock, and Boynton Canyon. They are known as the vortexes, the 4 places where 4 of many, I would say, where the main vortexes, and putting a word to a concept where people were just starting to get familiar with it. So it really blew up after these vortexes were put on the map, pun intended. And it's such a beautiful place. Like every time, it was the 3rd time that I had been there, but every time I go there, I find something out about myself on a spiritual level that I need to either address or clean out or just kind of face either my issues or like have like a light bulb or aha moment. And not to say like everyone has that, but if you are into spirituality, into practices, I'm hoping all of the listeners here are open to that type of thing. It is one of the coolest places I've ever visited. But
I feel Sedona is such an underrated town.
Yeah.
Because I that was my first time in Sedona, and I have been to Arizona before, more like to the Grand Canyon, which is like the most popular attraction. But I was interesting that I've been wanting to go to Sedona for a few months, and I kept getting this like hints of like Sedona, where should I go next? Sedona would always kind of pop up in my mind's eye. And I think everything always aligns with what you need. And I started like looking at, I Googled and I started like reading about it and started learning more about Sedona. And as I started learning more about it, I was like, well, that makes sense. I think that sounds like a place where I would really enjoy it, because I was going through like this space where I was feeling really burned out and I need a change of scenery. So Sedona really fit into being that space for me to just like really reconnect with nature. Plus, it's just so gorgeous.
Yeah. How did you first hear about Sedona?
I think it was probably through like the spiritual community. I think I would listen to podcasts and people would mention Sedona here and there. There were like retreats that people go to, spas. And that started like, it just caught my attention. And I thought to myself, well, there must be some community out there. But it was never like a place that I was like, oh, I must go. But I think as I start going like deeper into spirituality, I don't know, there's certain places I think that just like resonate, right? That there's no explanation. You just feel drawn to it.
It's like a magnet.
Yeah.
I mean, the vortexes are there for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I learned about this vortexes because I didn't really I wasn't like going for the experience of being like in this vortex of energy. I think it was more about like just to exploring the, that location. But what about for you?
So I had never really heard about it until my best friend from childhood, she was a golf pro in Flagstaff, which is about like, I don't know, an hour-ish north of Sedona. And we ended up eating at a really good sushi spot there. So we'll link all these places in our, in the page. But Flagstaff's really cute. And so she was a golf pro, and she's like, oh, on our way to Phoenix, we were going to see a DJ called Hardwell, like in 2016. And so we drove from, I think we only were going to be there for a few hours until we got to Phoenix at night. And so we did like a day trip to, actually, that was 2 different days. Sorry. I'm like, where is my mind? But we went to Boynton Canyon and we did a hike, and we started the hike at like 3:00. And I think when I visited her, it was like May or June. So it wasn't like, it was hot outside. I remember that. And it was still sunny at like 6:00. But at one point we realized that we were like the only 2 people on the path. And when you're hiking in Boynton Canyon, which is one of the Vortex spots, it turns into kind of like backwoods kind of trees, and kind of like it turns into like a mini forest type of situation. And so we hit that point, and we were like, oh my God, like how much further is the end? And because we were trying to find the vortex, and we didn't realize what we were doing. And this is before, actually, I was into spirituality then. It was during the clairvoyant training program we did when I visited her. But I was like, oh yeah, we got to do it. And we were silent. Like at one point I felt really scared on the walk, and so did she. And we didn't know that we were both feeling scared until after the fact. And we were like cracking up about it because we heard like a twig, like we were just like hoofing it, like because the sun was kind of going down. And like I was like, shoot, we should have done this at noon. Like, why did we start this at 3? And we felt like the energy of the vortex there was that feeling of like kind of like pushing us like forward, and not in an inspirational way at all. But it was definitely like we both started to feel like, okay, we have a little bit of fear in our space, and we both think that it was because of like the energy of the vortex, and everything was fine. Like we finally saw a human being, and we're like, oh, thank God. But it was like it was kind of out of a movie scene. Like, is this gonna be where like a 2-headed deer is, or like that kind of like unknown, uncertain kind of like anxious energy,
almost like you step into like a different dimension?
Yes, yeah, it felt that way. And she I would say she's open. She's like not as practicing as you and I are, but she was like, even for someone who's not practicing spirituality like as often as we are, she was definitely like there. I felt something weird in that woods. Oh, wow. So I'm like, not to like validate that there is definitely a vortex there for sure. And it's like kind of near, I think the Enchanted Resort is there, which is one of like the bougie places to stay. So maybe we'll stay there next time. You never know. But yeah, this time it was really, really cool. I'd gone like 6 months ago with my coworkers as well. And we stayed in Munns Park, and Munns Park is really cute for anyone who doesn't know about it. It's really, inexpensive Airbnbs, and it's about like 50 minutes to Sedona. A lot of the places in Sedona are expensive to stay.
Yes, one thing we learned, I mean, of course, they have like all those very high-end resorts.
Yeah.
And spas, and it is, I think, a more like
you pay for the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell just like by walking into town and downtown, like things a little bit more upscale.
Yeah,
and things are very clean and well kept. So I think there's like a reputation too.
Absolutely. Like you go for the experience, whether it's eating or hiking. A lot of people go for hiking, like, not just because of the vortexes, but hiking in general. There's a lot of trails. And we saw that a lot of people who, we went to the vortexes with They looked like they had been hiking all day. So, yeah, this time around I went with Lili, obviously, which is why we're talking about it. And it was very spiritually intended. Like the intention of my trip was to not only like meet new people in the spiritual community, but also like do experiences with Lili to talk about it on our podcast and do a little bit of, low-key networking with authentic spiritual practitioners. We got a few readings done. I got Egyptian Reiki done with Vicky at the Center for the New Age. She's amazing.
And how was your Egyptian Reiki?
At one
Maybe you want to explain that to our listeners.
Yeah.
I had never heard of it until you mentioned, you're like, oh, I booked this Egyptian Reiki. I'm like, what is that?
So it's like, it's similar to the Japanese Reiki. And the main difference that she told me was that sometimes with Japanese Reiki, you can do the hands hovering over the chakras in the body, where Egyptian Reiki is intentionally hands on. So she did place, her hands over like a lot of, parts of my body.
So she physically
touched. Yeah. And at one point, I felt like there was a third hand on me. Like, I know her hands were on my knees, like, channeling energy there, and my eyes were closed. But I felt a third hand on my hip when she moved both of her physical hands. Oh. I was like, where are her hands? And then I'm like, wait, that's not her hand. And it was really cool. And so I felt like, being able to feel the energy that's in the room with us, I was like, oh, there's a lot of angels in the room, and she has a few psychic doctors who are with her, or spiritual doctors who like show up, and she just has a really cool practice. And I just felt like very connected to her. Like I felt like I was looking at someone I had known for a long time, which is like really, I always love when that happens, because it's like a shock to the system, like kind of, giving you a memory that you like, or unlocking something within yourself. And she was like, okay, you have a lot of messages on the table. And I'm like, oh, I love that.
Oh, that's why we went.
Yeah, exactly.
We wanted a lot of information.
Exactly. And so I was told that I have to start Reiki circles and shares in San Francisco. Like that's something that my guides want. And she's said to channel, a few different angels and when I do Reiki and practice Reiki. And I just felt like really validated by that. And then, she checked all my chakras with a pendulum, and the only one out of balance is my heart chakra. So it's something that I've been avoiding looking at. And I'm like, okay, this is the time. Like it was literally like the universe, my guides and her guides and everyone in the room being like, girl, you got to fix yourself. Like you have to do the work and make sure that you're prioritizing healing in your heart. And I have not done that. And I've been avoiding it for like, I don't know, my entire life.
So she just reminded you.
Yeah.
Just to reconnect. And just for people that are, not familiar, maybe just kind of explain how does the pendulum work?
Yeah. So the pendulum, and Vicky actually explained this to me. So it's usually made of a crystal. I have a pendulum that I use in tarot, and so you can use them on the chakras. And so I believe that so I can't remember like if clockwise is in balance, but it's every other chakra. So one is supposed to spin clockwise, the other one is supposed to spin counterclockwise, and then you keep going down in that same pattern. And so I didn't see, I think I want to say the 7th is clockwise, but I could be completely wrong. I think it is clockwise. So it starts with the 7th. You check the 7th. If it's spinning clockwise, then it's in balance. And then, so she did a scan of all 7 of my chakras, and she did my 8th. And she said my 8th right above my head was not activated yet because my 4th is out of balance. So and then my whole goal is to like get my 8th activated so that I can tap into my, higher spiritual information. So that's my new goal. But in order for me to do that, I have to heal and balance my heart chakra. And the heart chakra is the middle of your chest. It represents your affinity with yourself, your others, self-love, love for other people, but it really starts with yourself and creating space for yourself. So that's how I interpret the fourth chakra, at least. But Lili, I know you had a reading. I want to hear all about it.
We both had readings. I mean, we actually scheduled the readings before.
Yes.
We went to Sedona, and I think we wanted to. And again, like, healers also need healing. You know, I know that a lot of you might be asking, but aren't you guys psychic? But yes, we are. But again, like, we also get in our own ways of like tapping into our own information, and it's always nice to get someone else's perspective and information. Sometimes there are things, as Shannon was mentioning through her story, they need to remind us. There are certain things that we need to pay more attention into. But I had a reading. She did my reading through tarot cards. And it was a good reading. She asked me, what did you want to look at? So I gave her my issues. So we looked at that. There's a lot of good information that came through. And she did kind of tapped into the future too, even at the podcast itself, which was kind of cool. And she said that next year is going to be really a year for a lot of changes in my life. So I am going to be a little scared, but it's very exciting at the same time, because I think these are going to be just what I've been kind of really waiting for. But at the same time, it's a little terrifying. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
When these things are like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was very validating, and I really enjoyed my experience with her. And I actually had a reading with the same person that Shannon had her reading.
Yeah,
Veronica.
the second reading, Veronica. She was great.
Yeah, so I had my reading with her after we got back from Sedona, because it was kind of like a lot for us to do like all sorts of reading. I did not get the Reiki. I just got the actual energy reading, and I got my reading with Faye, and Faye was lovely. And all the psychics, they read in house at this place called, I think you've mentioned it.
Yeah, the Center for the
New Age. And it's this metaphysical store, and it's
beautiful,
incredible. It's like anything you can think of and not think of. Yeah, they have it.
Every book, every crystal, like every tarot card deck, every CD for everything. It's just mind blowing. So they have these people, they're reading house, and you can pick. There's like a plethora of readers, and each reader has a different specialty. So you just kind of pick whatever, you resonate with, or whatever is it that you're looking for. So I thought that was kind of cool to just like be able to pick, from their menu. Yeah. It's like, oh, what kind of, spiritual treatment do you want? It's like going to a spiritual spa.
What would you like today?
Yeah.
Well, I would like this.
And they do massage services too. Like,
that's right. Yeah. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say that also my favorite experience that we had also in Sedona was we had another aura photography.
Yes.
And we did it with Jamie.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Jamie is one of the co-owners, right?
Yeah, her and her mom own the Center for the New Age
space.
Yeah.
And we'll leave, the details for all these readers and Jamie and the Center of New Age. We'll put it in the show notes. But I had a blast.
Oh yeah, it was so fun
getting our order photographed, and we will post our pictures, the before and after, because if you go through a few episodes back, we talked about our photography experience, and we posted also our pictures too, and it was just incredible to see if there was a difference in between that time, which was like, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 months ago. And looking at the picture now, at least for me,
you had a big difference in your aura.
A big shift in the colors, and I was not expecting that. But Jamie has an amazing personality too.
She just like reads really well, and you can tell she has a format, she has a system in place, and she's able to just give you the information you need. And the thing I loved about all 3 readers is that from my experience, they felt very cohesive to what I was experiencing. They all brought up like my heart chakra stuff. And I had asked Veronica, because it was right after Vicky's session, like, hey, I want to heal my heart chakra. What do I need to do? And so we talked about a lot of different things. And so what Veronica did was she channels a lot of information. So she's an empath, she's a clairsentient, clairaudient, kind of clear everything. And she is able to just channel information. And I got so many good resources and like suggestions and like tangible tools that I can like, start doing and to do the work. Same with Vicky. She suggested a few resources, and then also Jamie, like she was like, oh yeah, go to the Chapel of the Holy Cross and that'll help with your heart chakra. And I hadn't even told her about my heart chakra intentions. She just knew. Yeah. And she said that we both have red auras in the photos that you'll see when we post them. But she said that red is hands-on healing, which I thought was really validating. And she said most of the people they hire to work there have red, auras. And I'm like, cool, ideas for the future. Maybe I'll just move and like work for her. That'd be great.
Why not?
Right.
Just never know with these experiences. But she gave a lot of very insightful information and practical.
Yeah.
Very practical information. I love how she just like, she goes like right to it. And it was just like very spot on. I think both through my tarot reading and through Jamie, I think for me it was very validating into my journey, because Jamie, she's like, she looked at my aura, because I also have a lot of violet like on my, like on the upper part of my aura. It's just like, well, you should be teaching. And I'm like, I do.
Yeah.
And just like, I teach she's like, yeah, see, you're doing what you're supposed to do. So that's again like super validating. And I think for us, it was a healing experience too. I think in many different ways. I don't think I had like a mystical experience, like how people, I know that some people might have very like sort of like enlightenment, spiritual enlightenment experiences when they go to Sedona or there's like vortexes. I don't think for me it was like in that sense.
Yeah.
But it was very healing in different ways.
I feel like you just like feel so grounded when you go there. Like it just feels like a shift and like a energetic shift. And like, I mean, we've talked about earth energy before and we can kind of explain a little bit about it, but essentially how I interpret earth energy is connecting to your grounding core and to the center of the earth and like really plugging in and rooting yourself and being very present in your physical body in this moment in time. And I feel like just being in Sedona, the energy on the floor, it kind of feels that way. It's like you're walking through, and then there's also lots of like dead people around too. So like, people, like a lot of Native American spirits reside there and a lot of like indigenous energy. And I think it's such a beautiful place. It feels very sacred. It feels very protected. And I think like a lot of people who may not know about it, they haven't gone for, maybe a specific reason. Maybe you find out about Sedona when you're ready to go there. It feels like a pilgrimage in a way, like a destination, like almost like going to a temple, like a very sacred spot.
Yeah, I felt the same way too. I thought it was just like a sacred space. Not only for energy, but also for people to connect with nature. And I remember one of the mornings where I was meditating, I've never seen my energy so clear. I was just like loving it. I'm like, wow, this is just like being almost like in a dream sort of state. Everything's just so lucid. And I also saw one of my guides. I actually had never seen this guide before, and it was just like so crystal clear. As I was kind of meditating, just like seeing through my like mind's eye. And it was just incredible. But I think it, like in my opinion, right, that Sedona, I think the whole town of Sedona is a vortex. I don't think there might be maybe like pockets here and there, that people might experience like a particular or unique experience in that sense. But to me, it's like the whole town is just like one vortex. And I think Sedona is just one of like many places around the world with that type of energy.
And there's really good food. Like if you go there,
Yes.
you have to eat
Oh
at
my
mole.
gosh, I don't think we had a bad meal.
No, we did not have a bad meal.
I mean, everywhere we went, I thought the meals were just like
Is it
great.
Pizza Lisa Pizza or Pizza Lisa? What? It's an Italian place, and I feel like we'll link it in the. I'm butchering the name, but it was so good. And we actually met another spiritual practitioner, which I'm hoping to, set up.
Was a server.
Yeah, he was a server, and so he practices violet or prana violet healing, and so I'm very curious about that. I think hopefully we'll be able to have him and his partner on the podcast soon and just experience a reading with them. But there's so many different types of spiritual healing and readers, and people who it was validating for me to see they have a practice, but they still have a realistic job, and they still have, and he had a very interesting story, very how it's got. I always like to ask how did you get here? How do you get to your place of being able to be a spiritual practitioner? Because for me, I'm seeing that that's something that I really deeply desire, and I just don't know how to do that yet. And taking the leap and not having a traditional job, and because I'm still looking for a job, but it was a way. It was holding up a mirror of possibility. Hey, look around you. People are doing it. People are making money. People are doing practicing with good integrity and intentions. It is possible to do this. So that was a really cool experience for me.
Yeah, I think it also opens up, expands all the possibilities and options that are available. And I think they're endless possibilities at the types of jobs and careers in this spiritual path. Because a lot of people think, they have maybe limiting beliefs that if you're in a spiritual path, you don't make a lot of money. It's hard to have a career. So there's a lot of also beliefs around following that path, and it's something for me too. I also had to work around clearing and unlearning a lot of those beliefs, and just kind of also giving myself permission just to be open to all these different and just looking at these different modalities that they offer. And there's also artists that also do some sort of healing work too. It doesn't necessarily mean in the sense of psychic, but also in many other different, intuitive, sort of practices. So it was, I think, very eye-opening in many ways for me.
Yeah. Heart opening for me.
Yes.
I realized after we went a little bit ago, so it's been a while since I've kind of transitioned back into my new routine of not being employed and figuring out what my next move will be. And of course I've been interviewing for EA jobs, because being an EA for me is just so easy. It feels energetically aligned. If I were to do a full-time corporate tech job, I don't think I'd want to do anything else in the tech world. I don't even know if I want to be in the tech world, actually. The more I talk about it, the more I'm ooh, I'd be open to it, but I think I want to do something. I think wherever I go next, I want them to have ethical practices, and I want them to have just a mission driven, giving back to how do they serve the community in some way? How do they connect to their heart chakra? What is the heart chakra of their organization? And how do they connect to something for the greater good? And I see that my whole experience going to Sedona was just very aligned with how my life has been going lately, of just not having a job and just needing that direction to reaffirm that I need to focus on my heart chakra work. And I feel it's been kind of just frozen in time a little bit. I feel I haven't really tapped into my heart center space. I feel like I've tried, but it's more of like, I'm going to avoid it. You know, like I don't know how to do this. You know, because
maybe you're just either not ready, or you're not open yet. Because there's also something about like forcing.
Right. I'm like, let's fix it. Let's clean it out.
Because, you know, like, not because of maybe they like recommend it, like, oh, look at your heart chakra. Then we get sometimes a little bit so focused on that.
Right.
It's like, oh, but I'm not working. Therefore, because I didn't work on my heart chakra, therefore these things are not happening. I think it's more like looking at it like, well, heart chakra has a lot to do with affinity.
Yeah.
Right? What is jobs that you have affinity with, right? Did you mention like all those qualities at an organization, or maybe in your having your own or job where
that would be great.
Yeah, I mean that's what I keep like.
I know.
I keep nudging Shannon
love to be a spiritualpreneur, you know.
Like just like nudging her to go in that route and just have her own thing. But again, you know, like I think we all have our own journeys. And we do things when we're ready to do it. But sometimes we do kind of have to, you know, just push ourselves a little bit. Yeah. Just to give it a little try. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, you know, your whole, you know, just you just that sole job where you just focusing all your energy at. Yeah. And I think you could have both.
Yeah. I think it is possible to have both. But yeah, we can definitely. I'm sure I'll talk more about it on a future episode. Maybe the next one I'll have a job by then. But yeah, it's when you're navigating the change and transition. And I know we talked about this on the last episode. It's kind of a pit of hell. Like, you know, people don't talk about that. And I feel like I've been in kind of like this pit of like uncertainty. And for me, uncertainty is hell. Like, I don't like. And maybe it's because of my control tendencies of needing to feel in control of my life in some way. But then when you think about control, I'm like, no one's in control. Like everyone's, you know, just running around like little rats out here. Like it's fine.
And
like
energy doesn't flow.
No, it doesn't flow when you try to constrict
control.
Yeah.
Being restrictive energy. That's what it is. So things don't flow because they're just stagnant.
Yeah. And I think I hate relying on other people. And so like with these job interviews, I'm just like waiting for somebody to pick me. And I hate that. I like absolutely can't stand that. So, but on a lighter note, I do feel better physically that I am no longer in my last, you know, organization. I feel better. My cystic acne cleared up immediately. Like literally like within a few days. I had months of cystic acne and it was gone. And I'm just like, well, that's validating.
Yeah, well, you eliminated the stressor.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
In your story.
Exactly.
So that is gone. But now I think it's just an opportunity to kind of look forward and say, oh,
yeah,
what's next?
Yeah. And I'm definitely excited. I feel apprehensive.
Normal, apprehensive, because a lot of us, you know, if you are in a transitional phase, you always worry like, well, what's gonna come next, and how am I gonna pay my bills, and this and that. So it's easier for us to get, you know, a little stuck in our analytical thoughts.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're humans.
Yeah.
So that happens too. But I think it's also just looking into creating space to allow for this energy of flow to kind of start to
actually flow.
Yeah, flow and start like showing you, okay, there is hope. And as creators, we're always creating opportunities.
Yeah.
So that's a good space to start kind of tapping into.
Yeah, I like that. That's a bright spot. Yeah. Well, thanks, Lili. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you. Yeah. But we appreciate you listening to this episode. And have you ever been to a Vortex of Energy or Sedona? We would love to know. Or maybe anywhere in the world that might be popular around that theme. So share your stories. But thank you so much for listening and joining us. And don't forget to leave us a comment or review. And we'll see you on our next episode.
Thanks from the Psychic Girls Next Door. See you next time.